So we are in our final module of the day, final segment with Andrea Ferrer, senior account manager. And in this module, we'll be talking about the client experience and asking if is your office set up for more Hispanic clients? There's a lot to unpack here. This is our final segment before we wrap. It's going to take close to 20 minutes, more or less. So Andrea, before we get started, why did you think this was an important topic to cover in a summit that is largely about tactics and strategies and marketing? And like, why do you think this was important to cover?
I think this is an area that is pretty often overlooked. I have clients tell me all the time, Andrea, I'm ready. I have Maria who's going to answer the phones. And that's it. When they say they're ready, that's all they meant. So this is more for you than for us as a marketing agency, because we want to make sure that the clients have an experience that they want to tell all their family and friends about. We want to make sure that you're able to provide something that will get you 5-star reviews, that will get you more business. And this is something that you might not think about because all your practice is already set up. You think it's final, it's working smoothly. But, and this is what I want to talk about, that I think will change your practice for the Hispanic market.
Got it. So let's talk about the 4 stages that a client goes through when they join a firm. So the first is the first contact. The second is they either get retained or rejected. The third is the sign off. And then the fourth is sort of like life after the relationship. Why don't we talk about this first stage? And this the first contact often does come from marketing, from running ads, but this is really kind of where the marketing ends and the journey begins. So let's talk about what's important at the first phone call, first text, first email.
Yeah, there are several things that you need to keep in mind. The first one is, do you have an intake team? Sometimes people will tell me that there is someone in the second floor who is a little bilingual. So you call the firm and they will transfer the call to the receptionist to the second floor, and eventually it will get to this person who is bilingual. You already lost 6 clients doing that. So you need to make sure there is someone who will immediately answer the phone and be like, hola, la firma de blah, 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 etc. ¿Cómo lo podemos ayudar? Like, you need that immediately because that increases your chances of keeping that contact.
Right.
Something else we discussed with Ali was the phone tree. As you mentioned, sometimes people have a phone tree that says, if you want someone to speak Spanish, press 1. And that person hung up because it was in English. So definitely not that. Also, this is a little bit of a sensitive topic, but a lot of Hispanic callers expect different things from an intake person that an English speaker client. What I mean by that is that we don't want to tell your business up front. We want to get to know you a little bit better. We might want to have a long call. So the cultural expectation of this intake call is a little less name, first, last name, email, what's your case? It's a little bit like, how are you doing today? Are you feeling well? Etc. So, there are like these little nuances.
Yeah, let's expand on it because the general market, especially those that have zero, let's call it immigration risk in the US, will call a firm. And the intake will say, all right, what's your name, phone number, address, shoe size? They'll ask all these intimate details out of the gates. And more often than not, the general market will say, sure, here, I'm going to give you. If, let's say you're an undocumented person, you've been in the country for 10 years, you overstayed your visa, you get into a car accident, you call a firm. The last thing that person is going to do is give you all their information within 30 seconds. Yeah. And so what you really need to do is build trust, build credibility, build a relationship very early on and authentically with a Spanish-speaking staff that can empathize with that story. So it's so critical that scripting and the order of events is taken into account when you build out your first contact, because that could make or break the relationship. You want to handle that sensitively.
Yeah, and it's something that for a lot of English speakers would be seen as efficiency. I will see as either rude or scary.
Transactional, scary, impersonal. Yeah, I agree. And what do you mean by contingency plans in terms of the first contact?
So I was talking to some of the best intake departments that we have in our program, and one of them mentioned that something vital is the contingency plan. So what happens if someone calls you outside office hours? Where does that call go? the advertising is going to run in whatever schedule you want to, but someone might save the number to call you later. Someone might just be like scared and wake up at 2 a.m. with pain and call you at 2 a.m. No one will answer from your firm, but another firm might actually have 24/7 services.
Right.
You need to have contingency plans. What happens if they call after hours? What happens if your one intake person is sick? Where do these calls go? Like, do you stop? You need to make sure that you have plans so this person can always be taken care of.
Yeah. And it goes without saying, we're talking a lot about in-house staff. There are many resources to have other people answer your calls. If you right now aren't in a position to hire in-house staff, you could hire a virtual assistant for a few hours a day during operating hours. You can have third-party call centers like Lex Reception, who we'll be talking to tomorrow. They regularly talk and work with attorneys who handle live phone calls all day, 24/7, but also just overflow. And so there's multiple options here in that you don't need the super seasoned call center to be built out, but you need coverage. And I think you mentioned something really important. It's not just the empathy and the scripting and the cultural sensitivity. It's, do you have business rules to make sure that calls don't get wasted, that they don't get lost in the ether? So let's say someone calls in and then they get rejected. Let's say it's not a fit. They're not qualified. What are your thoughts on that?
Repurpose it, remarket it. Everything, you're paying for every call, whether you reject it or not, or maybe it's a referral or not. But any kind of contact that you get for your firm, you should keep. We discussed a little bit about that in automations. Make sure that you have everyone's permissions, but you should definitely keep these people in your network. Because sure, maybe right now the accident they had was past the statute of limitations, but maybe their husband will get into an accident, we hope not, and they will remember you because you kept in touch. So you need to make sure that you don't waste any lead.
This goes back to the email text module that we had about an hour ago. It's, you have a contact, make use of it authentically so that you're top of mind when people need you. And again, make sure you have all the documentation on consent. You need to make sure that these people in your database have given you permission to reach out to them through voice, email, text, etc. So let's say the person calls in, they're retained. Typically speaking, what are the must-have assets that a firm needs to be considered, bilingual friendly or Hispanic friendly?
This is gonna be a little bit more practical than you guys probably expected, but you retain this client, yay, and now you're going to mail him via DHL 6 packages of documents in English that they will not understand. That is the first problem. You need to make sure that your contracts are in Spanish as well. You can send both languages, but they need to be able to understand what they're signing, or they might get scared off and never send it back. You also need to make sure that you give them any informative documents. For example, one of our attorneys sends information I would like not to post on social media, any updates, because that might be like damaging for them. So all of this information, she makes sure that they get in Spanish, and you should too, because they need to be able to understand what services you're providing. Yeah,
good catch. That's an interesting one, the social media one, especially if someone's making a claim about an injury. Those details may not be communicated strongly enough, but if they're in a document, it's, what you're doing is reinforcing the message. You're reinforcing the instructions that you need from your clients. And it's important that they're in your language, that they're in the native language. But also, one thing that I've heard several attorneys in our program doing is doing simple versions or simple language versions of their contract, where they initial an amended part of the contract that says, this is what the section that, like section 1A says this in a simple language. Section 1B says this in a simple language. And so that could be another way to communicate without the legalese or the intimidation of needing to understand everything in order to sign it.
Another practical thing is financial documents and processes. How do you charge people for their services? When I first came into the US, I was so confused by how you charge people about things. Like, I would get a letter in the email that I think I had to put a check into, or maybe a credit card. I didn't know, and it was all in English, so I was very confused. So you need to make sure that a potential client has access to this. If you use QuickBooks, for example, they have like different language options. If you have a payment plan, a payment portal on your website, Make sure that it's easy to understand, if not in Spanish. So just make sure that people can pay you. I think we all agree that that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, you want to get paid. You want to make it easy to understand. Payment schedule documentation is huge. Obviously, we're talking about those that charge fees up front. Having a payment schedule in their language is of the utmost importance. That way, there's no surprises. You want these experiences to go swimmingly. The next line you have here is about swag, and I edited the top. I said swag that won't get thrown away.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of ugly swag out there. So how do you recommend Spanish branded swag that people actually want to use?
Well, I think the first thing that we always think about when we're coming up with swag is, would we use it? Because I myself will know immediately that I probably will not use a magnet. But these ones that you're seeing here specifically were given away at a health fair in which there were children invited who were playing there. It was in a sunny weather environment. So a water bottle was also great, as was the hat. So it was not like, let's randomly come up with 3 things to give away for swag. Right. It was like, we're doing this event. Let's come up with things that will be good for people, that they will enjoy. Right. So you need to make sure that it's branded for your Spanish audience as well, especially if you have different brands for each language.
Yeah, that's really big. We haven't gotten into brand, and we won't get into branding on this summit. However, if you do have a Spanish identity and you have a loyal Hispanic client base, you want to give them swag, merchandise that happily and proudly promotes your Spanish identity. That's big. And apologies to anyone that works in magnet calendar industries, but they're taking a beating today. So let's say a client goes to the office. What's critical here?
This is also connected to branding. This firm, for example, has an English branding that has their name and a Spanish branding that is different. Imagine you're a client that signs up with Abogados Campeones. You show up at the office and you don't see that anywhere. I am personally very distrustful, and I would be like, oh no, this is a lie. So you need to make sure that the brand you're promoting exists. So in this case, in this video, if you can replay it, when she first walks in, there is a giant sign that says Abogados Campeones. Yeah. They also have the English one on the other side, but it's clear to you, look, this is Abogados Campeones. No doubt I didn't get into the wrong place.
Right. And then again, building trust, building an authentic connection, you want to commit. So even if you don't have a Spanish brand, be proud of your name, be proud of your identity. This isn't just about promotion. This is about being proud of where you work and showing people that you're proud of where you work. You want your employees to be proud of where they work. That's super important. So that's it. So now let's say the sign off. Like, what is a sign off based on your conversations with our members?
So I'm sure you guys have a lot of paperwork to do when you're signing off a client, but that's not what this is about. When you are releasing this happy client into the world, there are certain things that you need to take into consideration that will bring you more business. The first one is photo and video reviews. I want to mention that this should also include a consent form, so you can use these images. You want always to document a happy client. So when you are making sure to give them all the exit paperwork, make sure that you get a picture with them, make sure you get their approval, and if you can give them a quick interview, you don't need to send a videographer to do this. You can do this on your phone. You can just have it real quick, like TikTok, for example, and Instagram love the spontaneity of these kind of videos. If you prefer to do it with a videographer, like the example on the right, you can also coordinate with like 5 or 6 clients and bring them on a day so you can do it. But just make sure you are not wasting this opportunity, because it might be harder to reach a client after things are completed.
Got it. Yeah. And it should be a standard procedure. Everyone's got an SOP, a standard operating procedure on what happens when you answer a call, when you retain a client. It goes to the paralegal, goes to the case manager. There's a meeting with the attorney maybe. And there's all these defined steps in giving that client a great outcome, right? We see that all the time, which is great. It shows that your business really cares about repeatable processes. This is the step that I see the most frequently missed in an SOP. It's you have someone happy, you got to leverage that moment and ask them for permission to promote their success story online. I know we talked about all the immigration happy stories, but there are also great stories in contingency areas of all, like, PI and work comp and labor law. You want to promote that, but the only chance you have in getting that review is arguably at that final meeting, if you even have a final meeting. If you don't have a final meeting, not some kind of ticker tape ceremony, but like a ceremony at the end, like a part of your standard operating procedure that you can film, that needs to be part of your SOP. Like, that's an actionable takeaway today. If you're meeting with anyone whose files is being wrapped, you want that photo, you want that video, you want their permission to promote it. And that should be an ongoing part of your system. I mean, even Google reviews, don't let them leave until they've left a Google review, a Yelp review, a Meta review. You can find out your own ways to create incentives ethically as possible. But what you really want to do is maximize the relationship, especially at the end. If you've delivered on a good result, you want to make sure that that's part of your SOP, that you're documenting that success. So, yeah. But from there on, like, what else can you be doing to stay engaged with your prior clients?
So this brings us back. Oh, no, all right. Active social media accounts. This client, if you have a good relationship with them, they probably want to keep up with you. They will follow you. They will want to see what you're up to. So make sure that you have active social media accounts in Spanish. By active, I mean, please don't post once every 3 months, because that is not active. Just make sure that people know that you are still a Spanish-speaking firm, that you're still going on. They will refer you. They will be happy to like things. They will say things, because I see this all the time. A happy client will come and comment on a post and be like, he was so great. He helped me so much. Yeah. I just don't think I could have done this without them. And that's already much more than any ad could create.
That is so true. That is so true. In addition to having that standard operating procedure of getting photos and reviews and opt-in reviews in the written form, get people to follow you, because just like Andrea said, they're going to leave a comment that may be worth gold to someone evaluating your firm. And so where do websites come into play?
Same thing. You want to make sure that you're positioning yourself as someone who is there for the Hispanic community. So make sure you have a website that does not have information from 1998. You want to make sure your address is updated, your phone number is up to date. If possible, you can have some blogs added, so they see that you care, that you're constantly updating things for them. And that is like a good looking website too. I personally will recommend, like, my cousin, oh, I talked to this guy, here's the website. They will be sending people there. So you want to make sure that it's very good looking and that it shows your appreciation for the Hispanic community that you want to work with.
Right. So no, these are all actionable takeaways. So today, in terms of what you can do on your standard operating procedure, the first I would say is address the first contact, address your business rules. Who's answering the phones? When there's no coverage, what are you doing? That should be something you can resolve for today. Also, evaluate, what are you doing when you reject the case, when you reject a client or a potential client? They should stay in your ecosystem. When it comes to what happens when they're retained, you should make sure that your documentation is up to date. There are countless legal documentation translation professionals out there. We actually know a few. One comes to mind. She's in Florida. Her name is Monica. She has an amazing organization where they just mass translate a bunch of documents for attorneys that need Spanish documentation. Make sure that you have swag that happily promotes your firm, your brand. Be proud of where you work and the brand that you've built, and make sure that people can see your identity and your brand and your personality throughout your office when they visit you. And ultimately, in your standard operating procedure, at the end of a case being closed, rather, when you're done with the client, with the work done with the client, you want to get photo reviews, video reviews, Google reviews, Yelp reviews, Meta reviews, Facebook, Instagram. You want to have them added on social media so that when they feel compelled to write a comment on a post or a story or a reel, that the public sees that other people have written about their great experiences. So, and lastly, with your website, make sure that it's accurate. Make sure that you have some Spanish content. Most attorney websites have zero Spanish content. We would love to see you have a fully bilingual website. I mean, that's the industry standard in Hispanic marketing. But if it isn't, at least have a few pages, that demonstrates that you're talking directly to the market, wherever they're in that customer or the client journey. So Andrea, thanks for putting these notes together, and that wraps up our summit for day one. I do want to get into the agenda for tomorrow, and if you could see my screen, you'll notice that we have an agenda right here. Oh, there it is. Apologies for that. There it is. So tomorrow's agenda, we'll be meeting with Ali again regarding Spanish social media ads in 2024. This one's just as loaded as our Google module from today. We'll also be talking about live event marketing in Hispanic communities. You know, the firms that are doing extraordinarily well in growth in Hispanic communities are building amazing online brands online, but they're also connecting it to experiences offline. We'll be talking to Sunari Guerrero, our Senior Project Manager in Web Development, on bilingual web design. And lastly, we'll be talking about best practices in bilingual intake. I would like to say that you can't miss any of them, because you shouldn't. The reality is, apologies for that. These are all high value, high detail modules that you really shouldn't be missing. So thank you again for joining us. We're about 2.5 hours in. Expect more or less the same timeline for tomorrow, and appreciate everyone's questions and participation. If you have any questions, you can email me at hugo@abogadosnow.com, and I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions there. But to the team, thank you so much. We'll share the names of those who produce this event tomorrow, and thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.